Matthew Kellway, you might go further than that. I understand the government wants to protect itself, but I guess at what point is the government protecting itself too much and not sharing enough information with Canadians about who is after information and why they're after information?
Yeah, I think, Rosemary, we got a set of circumstances that are cause for considerable concern by Canadians. We've got a naval officer with a high level of security. We know he's worked in a military communication nerve center. We know that the charges relate to activities that go back almost 5 years. We know we've had Russian diplomats taken off the recognized list of diplomats, and what this government owes Canadians is a forthright, plausible response to this set of facts and a statement to Canadians about what we're going to do about an obvious security issue here.
Dominic?
I mean, Rosemary, first of all, somebody's been charged, nobody's yet been convicted, so yeah. I think it's important that we focus on that. Already some of the media reports around who's been expelled from the Russian embassy may in fact have been contradicted. I think what we do know, and what this case tells us, is that there are other countries and other institutions that are after information or technology or knowledge that Canada may have, either commercial interest or government agencies. Just because a country decides that it goes after that particular information doesn't necessarily mean it treats us as an enemy. What you have is a foreign entity, as Laurie said, that may have decided it was interested in either some military or security information. Often it's commercial information. And Canada needs to do everything it can to protect that information. This case will in many ways be a test case. As you know, Rosemary, it's the first set of charges brought under the new security legislation. If in the end this person's convicted, we'll know in due course whom he was allegedly handing this information over to, and presumably for what purpose. Yeah. Not all of these spy efforts are elaborately planned. The Russian Military Intelligence Group, for GRU I think it is, sometimes is known to just trawl for information. You sort of put out a net and see if a vulnerable person, and this guy may have been a vulnerable person with some financial difficulties, if they can pick up somebody who in fact will give them some information. So all of that will become known. I'm quite impressed with the Canadian Security Services.
Okay, then let's talk about the broader aspect of foreign espionage, because we have had these little examples of snippets of things that have happened in the past. The allegations around Bob Deckert exchanging personal emails with a Chinese journalist who may or may not have been a spy. Put that aside, but we also have the former CSIS head of CSIS, Richard Fadden, telling Peter Mansbridge that foreign governments were watching us, leading people to wonder how prevalent is this, at least. Laurie Hahn, can you speak to that, about how prevalent foreign espionage is in this country and what the government is doing about it in a general way?
Well, certainly not in any kind of detail, Rosie, because frankly I'm not cleared to have that.
You're not a spy, Laurie Hahn?
I'm not a spy. No, trust me, I'm not a spy. But Canada is a very attractive, could be a very attractive target for, as Dom said, for lots of commercial reasons, not just military, but a lot of commercial reasons. We've got a very strong economy. We've got a lot of assets that people would be interested in getting information on, obviously to their financial and economic advantage. With respect to government action, and a couple things I mentioned, and again Dom mentioned it, the Canadian intelligence services are very, very good. They don't operate in the open. That's why they're called intelligence services. Yeah,
they're very good, but this guy was, allegedly spying from 2007, and then they only caught him in 2012. Well, there was one episode in 2007. It was over 4.5 years.
That's again, is an allegation.
Yeah.
These and things are coming out in the media, and some people are drawing conclusions that aren't necessarily there. It will go through the legal process. The public will be privy to that to the maximum extent possible, to the point where information will be harmful to Canada. We're obviously going to be very careful with that, and we're obviously going to be very careful in how we deal with other countries, whether they're allies or not allies.
Okay, let me ask you this then. The information that is out there, whether the government is confirming it or not, how damaging is it in terms of our relationship with other countries?
Well, I think other countries look at what we've done and come to the same conclusion I think Dom did, that our security intelligence service is pretty good. Because
Russia might not come to that conclusion, though. Russia might be peeved.
Well, I can't speak to who might be peeved that we have caught this guy. But that's their problem, not ours. If they're peeved, that's probably a good thing, whoever that is. But certainly our allies can take comfort in the fact that we are active, we do pay attention, we do when something does happen, and stuff does happen. This is the real world.
Yeah.
stuff does happen, and we do something about it. We're on it, and we will protect Canadians from this kind of activity.
Matthew Kellway, your perspective on that, on what this does to relations. Whether the government wants to say it's Russia or not, the reality is that Russia is probably watching this very closely and wondering what's going on.
No, I'm sure they are, and I'm sure our allies are watching it very closely. And I'd like to pick up on a point that Dominic made about these being charges, and they have to go through the courts, and there will be an outcome to see what the truth of the matter is. But I think what we do know is that our government and our intelligence services think that they know that there's been a security breach, hence the charges. And therefore, that's why we need a response. I mean, we'll see what happens to the naval officer as an outcome of the court, the trial. But our government does know, and I don't think it's reasonable for Laurie to suggest we don't know anything. We obviously know something. There are charges pending, and the government needs to respond to what it thinks it knows now.
Yeah, I think Laurie's saying that he personally doesn't know all the details, but Dominic LeBlanc, can you speak to the issue of how it affects relations with either allies who are worried that intelligence has been put at risk or directly with the alleged country behind the spying?
Well, sure. I mean, if ultimately it's confirmed in some process that this person was allegedly and in fact selling information to the Russians, that obviously doesn't help Canada's relationship with Russia, which is very important for Canadian commercial interests and for security interests. The Soviet Union model of a guy with a trench coat and a bag over his head giving information at some embassy in Ottawa in the 1960s. I was born in 1967, Rosemary, so some of that stuff was going on well before I was around. This is very, very precise commercial or security information that some agencies trawl for. So if you have this kind of allegation, sure, it probably makes it awkward the next time a minister meets the Russian ambassador. It's not the first time this has happened, and it probably won't be the last time that some country with whom we have extensive relations gets caught in this kind of thing. I think our allies, I hope, take some comfort from the fact that the Canadian security professionals that I've gotten to know in the military and in other security civilian agencies take this seriously. This person was charged. I hope if this person is convicted of a serious offense, he faces very serious consequences, because that in and of itself, I think, is a very good message for our allies.
Okay, I want to do a quick go-around on a completely different topic. This is Afghanistan, because the New York Times is reporting today on a classified coalition report into incidents of violence between Afghans and Allied soldiers, saying, quote, that lethal altercations are clearly not rare or isolated. They reflect a rapidly growing systemic homicide threat. Basically, the report suggests that these people that we are training on the ground are turning around and striking back, whether it be killing or hurting or injuring Allied forces. How concerned are you about this, Laurie Hahn?
Well, the French lost 4 people today, and we certainly send our condolences to them, and we appreciate their efforts as allies. Afghanistan is not a safe place. Nobody said it was safe. There's always some risk attached to any mission over there. We are operating with the Afghan National Army, Afghan National Police. Obviously, our mandate is to bring them up to the point where they can look after their own affairs. Yeah. Our folks are trained extremely well to do that. They're extremely well equipped to do that. We're always cognizant of risk, and we're always doing whatever we can to mitigate that risk.
Matthew Kellway?
Yeah, condolences to the French, as Laurie said, but this extension of our mission in Afghanistan as a safe training mission is clearly not the case. We've lost our own Master Corporal Greff over there in Kabul in the context of this training mission. Those soldiers, the French soldiers, were killed in the context of that training mission, and all the more evidence for us to bring our Canadian forces home. This was advertised as a behind-the-wire, safe exercise. It is clearly not. There are Canadian soldiers spread out across Afghanistan engaged in this training mission, and senior defense officers have described this context as extremely violent and dangerous for Canadian soldiers, and further proof of that today with this unfortunate news.
Last word to Dominic LeBlanc.